I want to start with number 24, Florida, and number 18, South Carolina. KenPom has South Carolina winning this game by 2. We are using the KenPom lines because the betting lines are not out just yet. I'm interested in this game because it's the clashing of two different styles. Florida, one of the best offensive squads in the SEC. We know they can keep pace with even the best of them, like teams like Alabama and such. And then you look at South Carolina, whose defense has been praised by just about every team. I knew when they were on the come up and they had like one of their first upsets, they beat Kentucky. And after the game, Coach Calipari said, this is a team where this was no fluke. Their defense is the real deal. One of the best defenses in the SEC. And also we should note that the market has been consistently too low on South Carolina, coming off an outright win as 5-point dogs at Texas A&M. So now they're back at home and they're favored in this one. Kate, is there anything you think better should know before betting on Florida and South Carolina?
I think this is a decent, even though they're on the road, a decent spot for Florida. Their last 3 games, they lost in overtime at Alabama, and that was a game they kind of gave away. They had so many chances down the stretch to put that game away and win. They go back home, play Vanderbilt and Missouri, the 2 worst teams in the conference. So now they have a big test again on the road. I think they kind of, want to avenge that loss to Alabama, knowing that was a game they should have had. So I'm leaning towards Florida here. I would imagine they're going to be getting some points. Plus, this line is a little fishy with like what KenPom is projecting. I believe it's projecting, a 2-point game? I feel like maybe South Carolina should be favored by like 3.5, 4. So if it's 2.5, something just seems odd that it's this close with how good South Carolina is and how good they've been at home, right? Like you have the better team at home, but they're only favored by 2.
Well, keep in mind, this is the KenPom line. These are not the betting lines. So when the lines come out, we may see this reflected in the home court advantage that we have seen for South Carolina. I think the only way you can look at this is, well, not the only way. One of the ways you can look at this is how does Florida match up against some of the better defensive teams in the SEC? Texas A&M is one of those teams that has a great defense, not so much of an offense. Like I look at these 2 teams, I'm like, okay, the sabotage factor for South Carolina is their offense isn't quite as good as their defense. But Florida lost on the road to Texas A&M 67-66. They got smoked by Tennessee, who I know is definitely a more complete team, but still lost that game on the road 85-66. So I think I'm leaning towards South Carolina, but a lot of it will depend on what the number is. I do think it's going to be close. If it's around the 2 range, I think I'd roll with Florida. Elsewhere in the SEC, a big matchup between Alabama and Tennessee. Alabama, the home team, and KenPom has them winning by 1 point in an absolute shootout, 85-84. We know points are the norm for Alabama, who we know can fire away. One of the best offenses in the nation. In fact, number 1 in adjusted offensive efficiency over at KenPom. But man, does their defense give up a lot of points. If you look at the last few games, we're giving up wide open threes to Ole Miss, gave up 117 points to Kentucky, gave up 93 points to Florida. So I think that's a sabotage factor. If you want to put your faith in Alabama, good luck, my friend. It's not going to be an easy watch because their defense doesn't do a whole lot. Meanwhile, if you think this game is close, I think I'd take the team with the better closer. Who's looked like the better closer in the SEC right now other than Dalton Knecht? He's probably the favorite to win SEC Player of the Year, coming off a 39-point performance against Auburn. I think I'll take the points with Tennessee if they're getting some.
Yeah, I think you have to, especially like you said, if this game is close and comes down to the wire, don't you want some points in your pocket at the end? Yeah, I would definitely take the points with Tennessee. I'm assuming they're getting points. I know they're, 4th in the nation compared to Alabama, that's 14th. You could also look at it over here because as good as Tennessee's defense is, it's always harder to, defend on the road in someone else's atmosphere, home court. And the Vols just gave up 84 points to Auburn. And that was at home. So that's concerning to me because you're now going up against an Alabama team that can score with the best of them. This could be an over game. We might see a boatload of points in this one.
Now it's certainly baked into the line when it comes to the Rookie of the Year race. I know it's only March the 1st, but Wemby has all but locked up this award. He is minus 900 to win NBA Rookie of the Year over at BetMGM. For a while there, it was kind of a pick'em. It would go back and forth between who had a good game between Wemby and Chet Holmgren, but now Chet Holmgren is a far cry from the favorite at 6-1. It should be mentioned that he had a pretty solid game in this one as well. It's just, again, Wemby is a generational talent, and I feel like measuring up to him is going to be like a tall task. Chet Holmgren had 23 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, which, on most nights is really solid. But when you don't add, 5 blocks to go along with it and a really good fourth quarter, it's just, you don't measure up. And I feel like that is a sentence that most people say when standing next to Wemby. Even Joel Embiid. Like, did you see that viral video of when Wemby walked past Joel Embiid for like the first time when they played each other? And Joel Embiid was just like, oh my God. Like, that's got to be a feeling that Joel Embiid is not used to.
He is so tall. So tall. And yes, if you stood next to Joel Embiid, you'd probably say the same thing about him. And then Wemby walks by. Oh my gosh. I don't understand. I want to know where he gets his clothes. Like, he has to have
They
them
have to be
custom
specially made. Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes. When I was in college, we had a guy that was 7'4", and they normally had guys on the bench. If you were hurt, you had to wear a suit. And they're like, Bart, you're 7'4". We can't find you a suit, man. So he had to like wear a tracksuit. He also had to have a specially made car. Like, being that tall is expensive. So at least Wemby has no problem on that regard. I wonder if Britney Spears is, a Wemby fan again. Do you remember that little saga?
I forgot about that. Wemby's like he seems like the nicest, most innocent guy that like he goes to bed turns his phone off at like 7, reads before bed, goes to bed early, doesn't do social media after a certain hour. I can't imagine him. What did he like push Britney Spears or something? What did she claim? I just don't see
it. It was the security member. It wasn't even Wemby, I don't think. Right. It was his security team. But that's the other thing that I think I have noticed about Victor Wembanyama. Doesn't he feel like an old soul? Like, he feels very mature for his age. This guy was born in the year 2004. Anytime somebody's born in the 2000s, I'm like, good God, I'm getting old. But the way he talks about himself and the way that he carries himself, like, this is one thing that Coach Pop has been kind of hinting at in some of the post-game pressers, is that he's not afraid to fail. He's not afraid to take those final shots. And we saw this in this game. Like, granted, a lot of these games, he has not had a chance to win the game for his team. But that is another thing moving forward that I think is definitely a good thing, because you can be great at scoring, but there is a difference between being a pure scorer and somebody who has the confidence and the composure to take over a game late and take the final shot. So it just feels like everything coming up Wemby.